Hey, what's up? What is going on? Welcome to another episode of Hey Mark, the podcast where I, Mark, get to have open and authentic conversations about things like mental health, self-development, and the struggles we might go through on a daily basis. You know, whether you're out there and you've kind of heard this before, or maybe this is your first time listening, that's kind of the purpose of this show, is just to let you know that no matter what it is you're going through, you're not alone, and life can and will get better for you. And like I said, I want to put these kind of conversations out there, at least try and start the conversation, at least try and give you maybe a new perspective, a new thought process, a new outlook on maybe your current situation, or maybe a situation you're going to come across in the future, and just kind of provide a different perspective, right? And if you are interested in that kind of stuff, like I actually do have a group that I started on WhatsApp, and so you can get involved in that as well. We do have daily conversations about, like I said, all of these types of topics as well. And then we do have weekly calls every single Saturday morning where we kind of have these group discussions. And it allows people to be able to connect with, other people that maybe are going through something similar, or maybe went through something similar in the past, or at least can, like I said, provide a different perspective to something that they might be going through. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, hit me up on Instagram, and I'll throw you into that community. If you don't know my Instagram, it'll be at the bottom of the screen here. But let's jump into today's topic, right? So what I wanted to talk about is actually something that is pretty obscure, to be honest. It's not something that I ever really think of very often. And to be honest, it's pretty morbid. It's pretty gross. So buckle up, guys. Recently I've been thinking about like this topic, and when I came across, this, I guess, perfect metaphor for this, or a perfect analogy for this, I thought that this might be something that's interesting to share, and so that's what we're going to do today. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I don't know if it's a disease, an illness, but something called gangrene. Essentially what this is like... it's an illness or a disease. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm going to do my very best to describe my understanding of it, but I might not get this 100% right. But even though I don't 100% know the science, it is still a perfect analogy, so bear with me. So there's this illness, right? Gangrene. You're probably more familiar with it than I am. And essentially what it symbolizes, or what it literally is like a collection of flesh. Sometimes it can even be organs as well, but a collection of flesh on your body that is kind of basically lacking blood supply. It's lacking the nutrients. It's lacking basically the sustenance that keeps it going, right? And so when your organ or your flesh or whatever it is lacking this blood flow, and this actually often commonly happens with gunshot wounds, apparently I found out while researching this topic, but when this happens, basically the flesh starts to decay. It turns all gray and purple and gross. And there's actually two different versions of it. There's a wet version and a dry version. And that puts disgusting imagery into your brain. So there's, now that we're off to a nice morbid start, here's a good way to start this podcast off. Anyways, yeah, so when someone gets this, even if it is like kind of like a small piece of your life or your body, it starts to decay. And the problem with that is when that small area of your body or your flesh or your life starts to decay, there comes kind of a philosophical but a literal, fork in the road. And so you're left with the option to chop off the finger to save the hand. And maybe a lot of you maybe have felt this way before, or maybe a lot of you feel like this right now, and you connect with this and you resonate with this, because when I heard that analogy, it clicked for me. A couple of the things that I've been thinking about, and this could be literally anything in your life. This could be, an addictive behavior, or this could be, a toxic relationship. This could be maybe a bad habit, maybe a thought process that you have in your life. Maybe it's just like a self-destructive coping mechanism. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's, literally anything. It could be anything. But you're going to be faced because, like I was saying before, once there's a small area of your body or your life or whatever it could be, when there's a small area of it compromised, right? Those negative emotions, those negative feelings, the negativity or the pain or the suffering or whatever it could be that's taking place, it starts in a small area of your life, but it starts to bleed outward and it starts to spread like a virus or like toxicity, right? And like a cancer, it spreads. Gangrene, or there's just negativity, even if it's in a small area of your life, it's going to spread. And so it might start off in a small area of your life. Maybe it's, a small disagreement with one friend, or maybe it's, the odd disagree. Yeah, like maybe your boss says something that's extremely, hurtful for you and you let it slide and it's continued behavior. Or maybe you pick up a self-destructive or a negative, coping mechanism and you continue to do it every single time that you have this trigger in your life and you just react in a certain way, even though it brings you the worst results every single time. And maybe it is something that starts off small and it doesn't really seem like a big deal. Or maybe like it's something that you can just sweep under the rug and forget about for later. But those are the things where, you sweep them under the rug and you forget about them and then it piles up. Or in the case of, gangrene, like I was saying, maybe it spreads. And it starts to manifest itself in every other area of your life. And typically these negative, behaviors, emotions, these traumas, the suffering that we carry, it manifests in some really fucked up ways, and it all ties back to the option to, like I said, cut off the finger to save the hand. And so when we're faced with that decision, it's scary because you have to make the decision. And this decision is pretty frightening because you have this decision of chopping off your finger. Well, what are the consequences of this, right? You kind of start to think about it. Well, it seems pretty permanent and it seems pretty painful. And I might not be able to do all the same things that I did before. And I might regret it. And so all of these thoughts kind of fly around your head and you get scared. And maybe you don't cut off that finger. And maybe slowly it starts to spread up the knuckle. And you think about it again and you think, it doesn't seem like it's spreading that fast. Maybe I'll just enjoy whatever time I have left with the finger or whatever function I still have of it. But it continues to spread. And we all kind of know where that goes, right? Like shit rolls downhill. Is that the right way to use that saying? I don't know. But it's like a snowball effect. And that rolls down a hill, so there you go. But right, like it's pretty easy to visualize the idea of that disease spreading. But think about the opposite end of the spectrum. Think about when you do decide to cut that off, right? It is scary. It is, you get that pit in your stomach, probably cold sweats. Maybe you ask a friend to help you out. I guess maybe you should ask a doctor to help you out if you have gangrene. But maybe you do end up making that decision, that wise decision, the smart decision, in my eyes, to make the painful decision. What a lot of people would see as a sacrifice. Something that maybe is scary for you. Something that maybe is, maybe you are cutting off something that is very close to you, like a body part. Something that feels like it's a part of you. Whether that's a part of your identity through, like I said, maybe a behavior that you have, a person that you see often, a friend, a family member, a job, or a coping mechanism. It could be literally anything. Whatever that piece of yourself that you're giving up, that infected, that negative, that toxic part of your body, your life, whatever that represents for you right now, when you do decide to give up that negative part, that infected part, the decaying part, well, then it's not actually a sacrifice because it's already decaying. And so it's not something that you're giving up. It's something that you're actually gaining. You're gaining the opportunity because instead of spending the energy trying to heal the area that's already decaying, you can cut that off and be able to conserve that energy and be able to focus solely on the things that are growing and flourishing. And so maybe you do make the painful decision, and maybe you can't do all the things that you could have done before, or maybe you lose some opportunities, or maybe your life is permanently changed. But isn't that what you're looking for? Because if you're in a position like that, it's obviously not good. It's not a good feeling, and you don't want to be in that position any longer. And so, I've talked about these kind of topics before when talking about anchors and having to cut off all of your anchors to actually set sail. I've even talked about this before in regards to friendships a long, long time ago. If you're actually one of the OG listeners, I had this discussion a long time ago about not having to cut people off, because if you actually start to restrict your own actions, your own behaviors, and you start to exercise discipline in your own life, you don't have to cut people off. The other people that aren't aligned with your values or anything like that will fuck off to begin with. They'll leave on their own, and so you won't have to cut them off. But sometimes, like I said, maybe they're part of that decaying part of your life, and maybe it's not even the friend. Maybe it's something that's internal within inside you. And maybe it's something that you have to kind of, work out before you go back to maybe that job if you're on a work leave right now, or maybe that friendship, or maybe that relationship, or maybe that, activity if it is a negative coping mechanism for you, something that's become addictive. This is something that you kind of have to take into your own hands if you kind of feel that negative energy. If you feel like some area of your life is starting to decay, if it is starting to, maybe just decrease in the way that it kind of made you feel before. A lot of the times when we have those, friendships or relationships, or we have these, like I said, it could be a relationship with like a coworker or your boss. Sometimes there's this event that happens in between the two of you, and there's this weird negative energy. And like I said, if you've experienced this before, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, then try and fucking bear with me. Try and understand, visualize, or try and, think about this. Say you're in a relationship or a friendship, like you have, or we'll use the example of work, because I think everyone's been there, where, maybe you always... you do everything your boss asks for, or you become that overachiever, or you're eager, or maybe that's not who you are, but you think that you and your boss have a pretty good relationship. And one day, maybe they're having a bad day, maybe you're having a bad day, maybe someone else is having a bad day, and you just get caught up in the conflict. But, you could imagine that something happens. Someone says something, or something that they don't mean, or something that is taken the wrong way. And then you have this weird kind of negative energy between the two of you. And neither of you is really addressing it, until it kind of builds up into a manifested kind of argument that happens maybe weeks or months later down the road. I've been in those situations so many times before, in pretty much every avenue of my life, every type of relationship I've been in, whether that's like with a boss or a coworker or a friend or a partner. I've been in that situation so many times before, and I think it's so obvious that when you actually do address those things, and that could be the cutting off of the finger, that's when it's possible to fix things. And only when you're honest and open about it, right? Because you could not even be honest with yourself about what part of that life or what part of your life or what part of your body is decaying. And so it's just something to think about. It's kind of an analogy I was thinking about the last couple of days. And it kind of helped me out understand, some of the things that I've gone through in the last couple of months and just kind of making decisions on how I want my life to look in the future. And so I hope that it was able to help you guys as well in that regard. So that's all I got for today. Like I said, if you want to join that community that I was talking about earlier, reach out to me on Instagram. Feel free to shoot me a message. It's at Mark D. Hendrickson. I'll put it on the bottom of the screen, and it'll be in the show notes below or wherever the show notes are. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys showing the support every single week, showing love, and I appreciate that the show is growing. So please do share the show, help me grow. If you're watching this on YouTube, do not forget to hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit like, hit fucking comment. I guess type a comment first and then hit comment. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, rate it on Spotify. That's a new option. Don't forget to rate it on Spotify. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave a review. But that's all I got for the day. Sorry I was a little bit, in my own thoughts there. I was still figuring out that idea, but thanks for bearing with me. So thank you so much. I've probably thanked you enough now. Much love and peace out.